Hey folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be talking about a cool little trick or guitar hack or method, however you want to think about it, for soloing over jazz chord changes. So let's say you have this progression, and as a guitar player, let's say you're using these exact voicings. So it's going to be D minor 7, okay, pretty typical guitar shape right here. And I'm actually going to throw in the top note as well, so I get 5 strings. The next chord is G13, and again I'm going to throw in that top note just to get one extra in there, and then C6-9. Okay, so D minor 7, G13, C6-9. That's a 2-5-1, you know, probably the most common progression in all of jazz. And let's just say you're playing a song that uses that progression, and you're playing the chords over and over again. Then when it comes time to solo, maybe you start thinking about scales, arpeggios, licks and phrases, kind of just like, what are all my options? And that can be a lot to process for everybody, but especially for beginners. So what's an easy way to hit all of these chord tones and sound good? Well, here's the trick. So you can just take these chord shapes that we just went through and break them up and play the notes individually. So and you get these kind of spread out arpeggio shapes that sound good just as is. And then you can mix the notes up a little bit. And then you can try it with, other chord voicings, whatever you're familiar with. And I think it's a cool sound. And again, you're just drawing upon the shapes that you're already familiar with, assuming you know a handful of chords. But we're playing these chords all the time. We might as well take advantage of some of these shapes in our improvising, I think. So I do this a lot in my own playing, and it gets me away from playing so many lines. And don't get me wrong, I love my linear phrases and my licks and such, but it is easy to overdo it. So this adds some nice variety to my playing. And actually, sometimes I'll be on the opposite end of that spectrum, and I'll do this a little bit too much, and I'll sound too intervallic and weird. So I'll need to throw in some lines and some sweet licks to save the solo. But really, it's all about finding that balance, and mixing everything together just right. So yeah, it's a great, effect for someone like me. But as I mentioned, if you're just beginning your jazz journey and figuring out how to improvise over changes and sound good, this is a really deliberate yet effective way to hit the right notes. We hear things like, find the chord tones, and it's like, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, of course, you can spell out all the chords, dive deep into the theory, memorize every single note on each string, and, that might take you a while, but you'll get there. And of course, that is the ultimate goal. But, a quicker way to get yourself playing, right off the bat is just to use the shapes you already know. And, after all, a chord is made up of chord tones. So, pick out your shapes, identify those chord tones, and set them as target notes that you can build ideas around. Or again, just use the chords as arpeggios because, you know, they just sound great if you break them up. So other instruments can do this as well. You know, it's not a guitar-only idea, although it might be a little more natural for us to think about chord shapes because we're playing them so much. But I guess the same might go for piano. In fact, something that really made me want to develop this idea is listening to Bill Evans and his left hand. When he improvises and comps for himself, he has a very active left hand. He uses a lot of these standard shells, root, third, seventh, you know, pretty typical piano technique. And of course, he'll play them as chords, but sometimes he'll break them up into arpeggios and he'll arpeggiate them up and down and add some counterpoint to what his right hand is doing, and it's really interesting. So yeah, something like that. And I've always thought that was really cool. A lot more interesting than just playing chords all the time. And I've always wanted to emulate that on guitar, so, you know, I try to do stuff like maybe I'll play something up high and then I'll come down low and try to get that two-handed effect. You know, something like that. And instead of just chord, 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 you know, I'll mix up some of those, you know, broken up arpeggio shapes and just kind of go with the flow and see what happens. But of course, guitar and piano are chordal instruments, so again, very intuitive. But you know, when it comes to melodic instruments, if you listen to the song "Stolen Moments" by Oliver Nelson, and you listen to his tenor sax solo, he plays something like this at one point. It's a C minor blues, and he cadences like. He actually plays this big, something like that, and what he's playing there, it's a, you know, A flat 7 to G7 to C minor 6 or C minor chord of some sort, and he arpeggiates this shape, and when I figured that out, I was totally blown away to realize that's an A flat 13 chord that like we would play on guitar, and he's playing it on sax, and it was just really interesting. So it's certainly possible to, you know, think intervallically or spread out with melodic instruments, and it sounds really cool when you do. Now, Oliver Nelson was a jazz arranger, probably played some piano, and was maybe familiar with that voicing. I'm sure it's a lot tougher to play on sax than it is on guitar or piano, but it just goes to show you that this type of mindset can work on those melodic instruments as well. There are probably other examples of sax players playing chord shapes or using intervals, but this particular phrase is one that really stuck with me. And whenever I think about this concept, I tend to go towards this one. One other example where this idea works really well is over a minor 2-5. So let's take these chords, D minor 7 flat 5, and I'm actually going to add on the 11th. So it's going to be like this, D minor 7 flat 5 with the tension 11. Okay, so remember that shape, we'll come back to it. And the next chord will be G7, sharp 9, flat 13. It's an altered dominant sounding chord. And what we're going to do is actually just leave off the bass note, and we're just going to take these top 4 notes, okay, and use those. So these top 4 notes are actually another minor 7 flat 5 with the 11. This is an F minor 7 flat 5 chord. So we have D minor 7 flat 5, tension 11, and F minor 7, flat 5, tension 11. So it's actually the same exact chord, you know, just transposed. So what I can actually do is, I have my D minor 7 flat 5 chord right here. I can just shift this up 3 frets and get that F minor 7 flat 5 tension 11, you know, functioning as a G7 altered sound right there. So I just, you know, keep the same shape, don't even move my fingers, just shift the whole hand up, and there are my chords. Now we add in the concept of breaking up the notes, and it sounds really cool. Resolve it to like a C minor 7 chord, you know, C minor, minor 6, minor 9, or something like that. Yeah, and then, you know, you can just keep that going. So, you know, that's just breaking up the chords using the same concept we've been doing, just, you know, with some slightly more advanced chords. Now, here's a little side note. These are actually, it was actually all the same chord, just transposed. So this chord and this chord, as I said, they're the same. They're functioning differently, you know, in this progression. But then this C minor tonic chord, it's actually the same chord. It's like, you know, just in a different inversion. So I could go like this, minor 7 flat 5. There's the shape we started with. Then I go to C minor 6 9. Well, there's that minor 7 flat 5 11 shape, you know, and then turn it around with an A7 altered chord, again, minor 7 flat 5 11. So. I just want to say I have a whole video talking about that one chord and all of its functions. So if you're interested in exploring that, be sure to check it out. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed talking about this cool little guitar hack, and I hope it's helpful. If you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please consider supporting me on Patreon. There's a link down below in the description. Thanks once again, and I'll see you next time.